This is ZNS-TV 13, the People's Station.
Several U.S. cities expressing interest in Grand Bahama, residents preparing to join the business sector, and heart disease the topic of discussion at a local meeting.
Newsnight 13 at 6:30 starts now.
Good evening all and welcome to Newsnight 13 for this Wednesday, October 26, 2011. I'm Shashina Roll sitting in for Pakeisha Edgecombe. Thanks so much for tuning in. Topping news, Grand Bahama will begin to see an increase in tourist arrivals next week with the launch of Vision Airlines scheduled service from 5 U.S. cities. Today, Grand Bahama welcomed the fourth and final group in a series of familiarization trips ahead of the inaugural flight. Sabrina Brown reports.
Vision Airlines touched down on Grand Bahama around noon Wednesday with another group of excited travel agents, meeting planners, dive specialists, and journalists on board. The 2-hour nonstop jet service from Richmond, Virginia is expected to have a significant impact on the local economy. Bahamian Ambassador to Washington, His Excellency C.A. Smith, accompanied the travel experts to the island. He said Grand Bahama has suffered a great deal in the past as leisure travel was hit hard by the global recession. The ambassador hopes this new partnership with Vision Air is the impetus needed to revive the island's tourism industry, but he noted that all stakeholders must get on board.
Now is the time for the Bahamians, the workers, the hoteliers, all to recognize this is a partnership arrangement, and the partnership could only work if everybody put their weight behind it and make sure it works.
His Excellency Smith believes this particular route has great potential for Grand Bahama.
We're talking about Richmond, we're talking about Delaware, we're talking about Washington, and that whole area, which provides literally a potential of millions of people from which to draw from. Great potential, great opportunity. We have to work with it and make it work.
Vision Airlines is expected to generate some 100,000 seats annually. Chief Executive Officer at Hutchison Port Holdings Limited, Gary Gilbert, said this is good news for Grand Bahama, and he added that great interest is being expressed from the U.S. cities involved.
We're just being overflowed by comments from all of the people who have come down here, either by email, phone, and they're talking to their friends, and they're just saying, we had a grand time, this is a grand place to be.
An international satellite television crew was also on hand to help promote the new service. Vision Air's inaugural flight is expected to arrive on Grand Bahama on November 3rd. Sabrina Brown, ZNS News.
Tonight's Facebook story of the night is brought to you by Sky Bahamas.
The leader of the Grand Bahama business community says while the chamber welcomes the much-needed air service, he believes the arrival of Vision Airlines will not fix the challenges related to the lack of airlift on Grand Bahama. Turnquest says he believes a more holistic approach must be taken.
It seems to me that if we want to reduce the cost of operating into Grand Bahama, which seems to be the issue, then maybe we ought to be looking at the operational side, the local side. What is it that we need to fix locally that will make it more competitive for all airlines to operate into Grand Bahama, rather than to cherry pick who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful.
Now to our Facebook question, do you believe the arrival of Vision Air will help with the island's airlift challenge? We await your feedback. In other news, Schooner Bay Village in South Abaco and its resident town artist Bahamian Antonio Roberts are featured on the cover story in this month's Coastal Living magazine. The immensely popular island lifestyle at some points have some 1.2 million readers in the U.S. alone. Many of whom live in the east and southern U.S. Schooner Bay Village, started by NASA-based Linderoth Development in early 2007. So far, more than 50 properties have been sold. The harbor opened to the sea this past summer with pilings and docks now underway. It will begin to serve owner vessels by the holidays. The National Congress of Trade Unions is continuing to lobby for the establishment of a union to represent the workers at the Freeport Container Port. At last report, the matter was before the Registrar of Trade Unions, former president of the NCTU and leader of the Bahamas Public Services Union. John Pinder says while the process towards certification has been slowed, they are determined to see it through.
I had heard that some other group got involved and was trying to kind of split the membership there even before recognition was given. I think that's the problem at the container port. I certainly intend to, in the very near future, get more involved in that so that we can see how best we can get those persons on board. The ruling handed down by the Court of Appeal that gave Customs and Immigration the right to have their own union spoke to freedom of association. And so it may be an opportunity for BPSU to really get into the container port and actually get that membership recognized.
Now on to news from the crime beat. One suspect is in custody while the search continues for two others believed to be responsible for a horrific armed robbery in the Pioneers Loop area this morning. According to reports, three males, all wearing dark clothing, were seen jumping over the fence of a yard in the Pioneers Loop area. Police say the suspects kicked in the front door to the home, held the occupants at bay, and demanded cash. Police say when officers arrived on the scene, they saw the three suspects fleeing from a home headed toward a service road. A team of officers then gave chase and caught one suspect who is assisting the police with this investigation. According to reports, police discovered a firearm and several rounds of ammunition for another firearm, all of which were recovered with some other items that were taken from the home. Investigations are continuing. Meantime, two men are in custody for possession of suspected dangerous drugs. Police say Drug Enforcement Unit officers acting on information yesterday afternoon intercepted a silver Nissan Maxima car in the vicinity of Queens Boulevard. A search of the vehicle was conducted and officers reportedly found inside on the rear passenger seat a green and black duffel bag containing 4 taped packages of suspected marijuana. The two males, ages 41 and 24, both of Baileytown, Bimini, were taken into custody and are assisting police with this investigation. In other news, convicted sex offender Andre Burbal is expected to be back before the Court of Appeal tomorrow for a status hearing. You may recall that the former 8 Mile Walk High School teacher was sentenced to 35 years in prison in February of this year after a jury found him guilty of 6 counts of unnatural sex with 2 of its students. Earlier this month, Burbal appeared before the court to appeal his sentence and conviction, but the Trinidadian teacher hasn't been able to do so because he cannot afford a lawyer. Now, during the proceedings, the Court of Appeal panel directed the registrar to get Burbal a lawyer at the public's expense so the matter can proceed. Stay with us, Newsnight 13, back in a moment.